developing his main function, something which normally takes place between the ages of 10 and 20. He still has to get to that is, to develop one main function, after which he could go on to the inferior function to discover the problem behind the irritating factors of reality. In the next dream, about which he wrote me, he tells that he is in a sort of razzia, i.e., a raid in which people are caught up by the police. He does not try to run away because he thinks that his innocence will be revealed. He is put in a room, and after a while he opens the door and sees that his guard is a woman. He asks her if she will let him go, since he is innocent, and she answers, "Yes. Certainly I shall let you go because you are innocent, but first, there are some questions to be put to you." Then he hears moaning coming from behind the wall, and realizes that questioning is accompanied by torture. Actually, people are being beaten on the silence. He is very much afraid of the physical pain and wakes up. He did not give me any other associations, but this refers clearly to this prison and police phobia complex. As you remember, he could not cross the Swiss border because he thought he would be put in prison, and he always ran when he saw a policeman. In connection with the woman guard, you will remember that he was a painter. He wrote that he had once painted the portrait of an unknown woman, an imaginary woman. For 4 years, he worked on this painting, which became so vivid and significant for him that he had to keep it covered with a cloth, especially at night, because he was always afraid it might come alive and threaten him. He would not sleep in the same room with it for that very reason, so he painted and then quickly covered it over. Sometimes he did not look at it for weeks because it was a living thing to him. That is a really amazing example of the anima itself. The painting did not remind him of any concrete woman. It was the representation of the anima, of the imago of the woman within, and it had become so alive to him that he was terrified of it. The old Pygmalion motif. Now, we should go into this strange police prison complex, which he had as a kind of phobia in reality. The dream is very important because it begins to link up with what I wish to arrive at the end of my lecture, namely, that we are dealing with a problem that is not only personal, but also belongs to our time, the police state. The absolutist system which tortures thousands of people is becoming more and more the great problem of our day. The strange thing that is mainly the Puer Excerpt who are the torturers and who establish tyrannical and murderous police systems. So the Puer and the police state have a secret connection with each other, and the one consolates the other. Nazism and communism have been created by men of this type. The real tyrant and the real organizer of torture and suppression of the individual are therefore revealed as originating in the unresolved mother complex of such men. That is what possesses them, and it is out of this state of possession into which such a complex plunges people that they act in this outrageous manner. Since the dreamer is in the street, it can be said that he is in the collective. At present, in reality, he has no relationship to the collective, since he is an isolated, lonely human being with an entirely asocial attitude. Nowhere is he linked up with his feelings. He has no real friends, only the man to whom he gave away his girl, but that had not been a strong feeling connection. Therefore, he is lost in the collective. He is the anonymous man in the street, and that is where he is caught up by the police state. Anyone who has a weak personality and who has not worked on his individuality is threatened from both sides. Not only is he threatened with being swept away by the collective unconscious, but also by outer collectivity. The person with a weak ego complex swims between Scylla and Charybdis, between the devil and the deep blue sea. Either the collective unconscious or conventionally in some form. Collective movements, very likely, one or the other, catches him. Identifying with the persona or identifying with the collective movement is therefore as much a symptom of a weak personality as to go mad and fall into the collective unconscious. It is merely a variation of the same thing. which is why the carriers of these collective absolutistic movements are generally very weak as far as the ego is concerned. I remember a medical doctor telling me that at the beginning of World War II, when he was a well-known stomach specialist, he had a high Nazi official under his treatment who had stomach ulcers. He succeeded in curing this man, and as a result, he was spoken of in Nazi circles as being a good stomach doctor. Throughout the war, therefore, a great number of high-ranking Nazi officials came to him for private treatment. Under the Religio Medici, the medical code, he, of course, could not refuse to accept them as patients. He said it was amazing to see those concentrate camp torturers, those so-called heroes, take off the beautiful uniform and shirt and disclose a body tanned by sun and sport, and then to find nervous, hysterical stomach trouble underneath. These pseudo-heroes were merely weaklings, spoiled mama's boys. He had to dismiss a large percentage, telling them the trouble was purely psychological, sheer hysteria.